Hello dear friends. Greetings from Pasha. It's a village in Menghai County, western Xishuangbanna. We're visiting our new friends. We were introduced by an old Menghai friend of ours. We're tasting fresh Sheng Pu'erh. The season has just started. There's Sheng Tai, and there's Xiao Mu, and Gushu too. All the basic grades of young Sheng Pu'erh. We're starting with Sheng Tai, about to taste it now, and I already like it, although it's just the first brew. Delicate, soft, sweet, exactly what the best young Sheng should be like. No bitterness whatsoever, very full round taste. Now we're getting to know each other. We're in a very nice room. They always receive guests here. The majority of the population here are ethnic peoples. Hani people live in this region. The Nanu mountain is also situated nearby, and it's populated by the Hani people as well. They're old friends of ours. We've been working closely with Hani people for a very long time. We continue our degustation. We just tasted Xiao Shu, tea from small tea trees, and now we're having Xiao Mu, tea from arbor trees. They even look very different. We already finished Xiao Shu, and I'm holding Gushu in my right hand and Xiao Mu in my left. You might notice the big black stems in Gushu. It's characteristic of this tea. They're very apparent, and generally Gushu leaves are big. The tea looks very loose. It's impossible to mistake it for any other tea, especially when the teas are right next to each other. If you look at all three varieties at once, it's very easy to tell them apart. Gushu looks darker, and somehow it's glossier, and it's got bigger buds, leaves, stems. Everything is bigger. Xiao Mu is a bit smaller, and Xiao Shu is even smaller than that. Even Xiao Shu is very good this time. Let's see what the Xiao Mu is like. It's even sweeter, I have to say, but it's more delicate, isn't it? More tender. It's the first brew. It's always the softest. He's saying that this tea was produced yesterday. That's why it tastes so fresh. The master is saying that it's characteristic of Xiao Mu, that it tastes softer, and it's usually more tender, which was obvious even in the first brew. The Xiao Shu is a bit tartar. There's a slight bitterness, but it's light, very light. The Xiao Mu is very sweet. There's no bitterness at all. But there's still what you call Jinwei, fresh taste, or fresh flavour. In 2 weeks, the flavour will change dramatically. It will be changing day by day. But in 2 weeks the change will be apparent. The taste will become denser. But so far the taste is very tender. It definitely has its charm. Much like very fresh green tea. It's a special experience to drink green tea that's just been produced. This tea will gradually acquire flavour notes that are more appropriate for Sheng Pu'erh, more and more every day. And when we told our friend that we're going to visit Pasha, I asked if they produce red tea here. And he said that they do, but only to order, because it's not in big demand. People generally make Sheng Pu'erh here. And there's not much Shu produced here either, also only to order. So they made some red tea specifically for us. Moreover, they made the red tea from Xiao Mu, not from Xiao Shu, or Sheng Tai, like they do in Nanu, but from Xiao Mu, which is a higher grade raw material. Xiao Mu trees are all over 100 years old, and we'll taste it after we've done with Gushu. Smells interesting. Well, it feels somewhat similar to Dian Hong. Tea from Nanu has a flowery flavour, because it's sun-dried, so it has a very apparent floral note. This tea feels closer to classic red tea, but we're still curious to try it, because the raw material used here is of higher quality. Maybe we'll buy some of it too, but we have to taste it first. At the end of the tea tasting, as they usually do, they brought some exclusive teas. These varieties are rarely produced here. They're telling us interesting stories that local tea contains a large number of antioxidants. But not any tea, but wild red tea, Yesheng Hongcha. We tasted this kind of tea in the northern part of Yunnan, but it's the first time I've seen this kind of tea in Menghai. But now we'll see. It's interesting. With the local water, the liquor is green in colour. Let's check out the taste. We've seen something similar before. Tea from Linsang gave a blue-coloured brew. We've already tasted the red tea. It's amazing. We bought the whole batch. They only produce 20 kilos from Xiaomu trees, specifically at our request. As I said, they don't usually make red tea here. Now we'll try the second one. And as a super exclusive, here's a tray with local baicha, white tea. Looks like typical shumai, like shumai from Fujian. But let's see what it's like here, because it's the first time I've seen this kind of white tea here. The white tea that's produced in the northern area, like in Jingu and other nearby regions, is much more common, unlike here in the highlands where they mostly make Pu'erh. But I've not yet seen tea like this in Pasha or Moychay, these kind of places. So I'm very curious to taste this tea here. The water's already 95 degrees. Let's wait for it to boil, and then we'll see what we have here. It's in the mentality of each and every Chinese that the first tea they always show is what they themselves understand and prefer, what it's customary to produce or drink in a given area. And only when you specifically ask them if they have anything interesting, or rare, or exclusive, and produced in lower quantity. By the way, in this tea, the buds look like buds in yabao. So only after you ask them, they show you something interesting. We're not holding back, brewing stronger tea as usual. We're now at an altitude of 1400 meters. And this tea is grown above 1700 meters, at 1800, and even 2000 meters altitude, in the midst of the wild tea forest. You can already recognize the aroma. It's very, very interesting. This tea is produced in February, and buds pop out in January, and in a very small quantity, because it's wild tea. There's really not much of it. That's the main reason why you don't see a lot of tea like this in the area. And of course it's difficult to pick, but they still produce it. Some clients appreciate it a lot, so they always produce some. The tea has indeed met our expectations. Very interesting red tea. It's very different from Yesheng Hongcha that we tried in the north. Of course it does resemble it a little bit generally, but still the aroma is very unique, flowery. Somehow it's comprised of a whole variety of flavours. You can't just select one note. Very unique tea. It's a red tea, but has something in common with white and with oolong. Even resembles sheng a little, although just a little. It's wild tea. You can't really compare it with tea that's artificially grown by people. You can't compare it to those varieties that are used to make pu'erh. This tea will definitely appear in our selection, but it's going to be an exclusive. They only produce 20 kilos, and 8 of those are reserved by the owner's friend. So basically we'll have around 10 kilos of this tea. Next year we'll ask him to make more of this tea. We're about to taste the last tea, because we haven't even had breakfast yet. What time is it anyway? It's midday. It's already 12:30. And we only planned on having breakfast. But first we're tasting baicha. This white tea is produced from gushu trees, from autumn harvest. Interesting. Very interesting. I haven't tried anything like this before, at least not in this area. It smells like typical shumai. Seriously, like typical white tea. It tastes like shumai. So we've tasted the tea from Pasha, and now we're going to see gushu, local ancient tea trees. Maybe we'll even get to gather some leaves and roast tea ourselves today. It's a very interesting experience, and it always turns out different everywhere. It's always interesting how they do it in every new area. The weather's wonderful, so the tea should also turn out wonderful today. It was foggy in the morning, but it's cleared up now. It's sunny and beautiful. The higher you go into the mountains, the more tea is around, and almost no other crops. In the foothills, they mostly grow rice. We just tried local rice. It's very tasty. It's dark in colour. They call it hongmi, red rice. And we also tried local kusao, or bitter grass. It's an interesting wild crop, somewhat similar to bamboo, and its sprouts cost more than meat because they're gathered like mushrooms in the forest, and it takes a lot of time and effort to find them. They try to cultivate it, but it doesn't grow in artificial conditions. It's in high demand. It's a very delicious, bitter sort of treat. It's wild grown, and it's becoming rare, so it's very expensive. It's a local delicacy. It was very nice of them to make us a lot of interesting traditional food, especially for us. We just had lunch, well, brunch really. And now we're heading into the mountains. Beautiful serpentine roads, very beautiful landscape. And now we can see that only tea is grown at this altitude. These are xiaoshu bushes, small trees. These trees are typically less than 50 years old, young trees. Essentially they're bushes. But considering that initially it's a tree, they're called xiaoshu, or small tree. We just had a little accident. On narrow serpentine roads, even though they aren't dirt roads but concrete, still it's very hard for two vehicles to pass each other, and our driver hasn't driven a manual transmission car in a while, and on a difficult pass he lost control of the car a little and sideswiped a passing truck. Our headlight is cracked, but the truck's fine. But it must be the most peacefully resolved road accident I've ever seen. We just got out of the cars and laughed it out. Your headlight's cracked. Ah, whatever, let it be. Threw the broken piece of the headlight in the trunk, and that's it. Case closed. No muss, no fuss. Everything is so peacefully resolved. But he did ask his friend to drive instead of him. He was afraid to keep driving himself. We're heading to Pasha. Breathtaking views. It's very beautiful here. Let's check the altitude. We're at around 1600 meters, almost 1700. And now we're in Pasha Laojai. There are a few villages, or jais here, 6 to be precise. And this is a pretty big village, or rather long. It's spread along the road. A lot of tea is produced here, a construction site. Well, they're very common really. They're building new houses everywhere. And in fact, very few old houses are left here. The economic prosperity grows fast following the increase of tea prices. By the way, gushu from Pasha are considered more ancient. We'll have a chance to see them for ourselves. There really are a lot of old trees here. However, Pasha is not as well known, say, as Laobangjang. So tea from Pasha is much cheaper. But it doesn't mean that tea here is lower quality. It's different, but it's definitely not worse. The gushu here is of very high grade. We just got to taste how good it is. And now we're going to check out the trees. We're at the top of the Pasha village now, and as is customary at the top, and it's almost the top of the mountain, Cha Shu Wang grows at the very top, the king of ancient tea trees. Nobody knows exactly, but legend has it that it's more than 1,000 years old, probably even 1,500. Judging by the trunk, it might be even older. Very old tree indeed. Last year in Fencing, when we were collecting danju, or tea from a single tree, the tree was 1,500 years old, and it looks smaller than this one. This one must be even older. A very big tree indeed. There's a small tea garden here. It belongs to one family. There are a few old trees here, but still younger than the biggest one. This one definitely stands out. They don't produce tea themselves. They just sell the fresh leaves to whoever needs them, and they go on to make tea from this raw material. This year they've already collected a harvest, but from younger trees, not these ones. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to get some leaves from this tree. Because we made friends with all the local farmers that matter, let's put it that way. The ones that own the highest quality, most ancient tea trees. There's a tea factory nearby, but surprisingly, they're not the ones who own these ancient tea trees. I don't know why, but the owner of the factory lives on the mountain way below. I don't know if the family would ever want to sell these trees. But in any case, now they are theirs. They've turned up some horrible pop music. They must have seen us and thought, foreigners, let's play some music. So we're admiring the old tea garden, accompanied by fun pop music. An interesting fact, here in Menghai, and generally in Xishuangbanna, all old tea trees are protected by a fence. Sometimes it's downright ugly, old bamboo fence, a rusty metal gate, barbed wire, a huge lock, apparently for decoration. But really, they're protecting the trees. Because a lot of tourists come here, and they like to take pictures with the old trees. And of course, the trees might suffer. By the way, you can check out our video from fencing. We'll provide a link in the description. There are ancient tea trees there as well. But there are no fences around. Because there's much fewer tourists. Because it's far away, harder to reach, so there are no tourist crowds there. So there's no danger that someone would stomp on the roots of the ancient tea tree. Here they do need protection. Last year in Laobangjang, we were really surprised. They hadn't put a fence around one tree, but around the whole area where the trees grow. No entrance, protective signs everywhere. It's good that they're taking care of the trees, but I wish they would find an aesthetic way to do it. We've come a little higher up the Pasha mountain. We passed Pasha Zhongzhai, the middle Zhai of Pasha village. There are around 600 people here, so it's rather densely populated. And it's mostly populated by Hanizu, the Hani people, the same people that live on the Nanu mountain. This tea garden belongs to our friends. Their tea pickers are collecting leaves right now, and our friends decided to join them too, because today we're going to make danju cha, tea from a single tree, from this exact tree. It doesn't look very big, but it gave plenty of shoots this year, so we'll pick leaves from this tree, and from some other old tea trees as well. After we collect leaves, we'll make tea from them. By now it's a tradition of ours in this area. We always try to make tea from the best gushu. They brought a special ladder to climb the tea trees, although the local tea pickers either use a simple stick to climb, or no props at all. But our friends decided to thoroughly prepare. I tried to climb the ladder, but quickly realized that it's going to bend, so I'd better not risk it. As you might already know, in the 1990s, the government ordered all the old tea trees to be cut down. Back then, leaves were very cheap, and they didn't realize the true value of the old trees. So they cut them down, because it was hard to collect leaves from big trees. And they don't get many leaves. Bushes actually give much more raw material. And they thought the more leaves, the more money for the poor farmers, for the poor villagers. So as a result, many villagers cut down trees in their tea gardens. We saw it in Yiwu and other places as well. So most of the tea trees were cut, and only recently, years and years later, they realized the true value of gushu. So now they take care of the ancient trees. Now they show off their surviving trees. Interestingly, the most law-abiding minority in China is also the largest one. It's the Dai people, Daizu. So old trees in most of their tea villages were cut. The government ordered, so they had to abide. What else to do? So they obediently cut everything down. And the most disobedient, or the laziest, as Hanizu say about themselves, they literally say, "We were so lazy that we didn't cut anything down. And now we have plenty of ancient tea trees, so it turned out great for us." So there are a lot of ancient tea trees left in the villages of the Hani people and the Balang people. And the main reason for that is that they didn't follow the order, for different reasons. For instance, the Balang people are historically known to be more independent. I visited the Bada mountain once. You might have seen our film about it. There's a mural there depicting people from Bulangzu holding weapons. They were fighting Hong Weibing, or the Red Guards, who are associated with the modern Chinese government forces. and the Communist Party. So love for independence is really in their blood. Thanks to their love for independence, and partly to their natural laziness, and the will to make decisions for themselves, ancient tea trees in this area have survived in large numbers. It's interesting. I'm climbing this tree, and it's strange that it's very convenient to climb, because they've been climbing it for many years, so its branches have grown crooked in a way that almost make up a ladder, so you can confidently stand with both 2 feet on the branch, and you're also supported by other branches, so you aren't afraid to fall. It makes it really easy to harvest. I asked them which flushes we're harvesting right now, and they told me to collect all of them, the bigger ones too, because later they'll be sorting them anyway. Usually a flush consists of 2 leaves and a bud, or 3 leaves and a bud. Anyway, it's a long, fully formed shoot. Here's one. This will make a great sheng. First we were planning to collect leaves from a single tree, but we put that aside and began harvesting the ones nearby. And these trees are quite big as well. They're a few hundred years old, but there are several trees like this here. We'd like to produce more tea, and Danju would only give us 1 kilo max. So we decided to harvest several trees. So in the end we'll have more raw material. So after around an hour of work, we filled about 1/3 of this bag, but myself personally gathered 1/3 of this third. This raw material is rather expensive, so you'd expect that only a little quantity of it can be gathered. But actually there's quite a lot. This was gathered from 3 trees, for instance. This smaller one, the bigger one I had to climb, and another one over there. And we aren't finished yet, so there's a lot. You can collect quite a lot of leaves from these trees. But despite the high prices for this tea, local farmers can only earn money during the harvest season. There are 3 harvest seasons: spring, summer and autumn. That's in general, but the highest quality raw material is harvested in spring, of course. Autumn leaves are usually used for production of red tea, or Pu'erh. They use those to make sheng as well, but usually it's a lower grade than sheng harvested in spring. Some farmers don't pick leaves in autumn on principle. It varies greatly, from family to family. It depends from region to region, and mountain to mountain. But also it depends on the family traditions. Some farmers harvest tea in autumn and some don't. If they have another source of income, and they don't have to pick leaves all year round, then they would only harvest tea in spring. These are some of the small nuances of tea harvesting. We're really lucky, because the weather keeps improving. It was rather foggy this morning, and I thought we should be glad that it didn't rain. But after 2 p.m, suddenly the sun came out, and the tea pickers also came out to work. That's exactly when we arrived as well, to collect leaves for our small batch of fresh tea. It's a tradition we have, to take a photo in front of the tree together with our friends, so they can show off the photos on all the local social networks. One of the most pleasant experiences is to travel in the back of a pickup truck, because that's how you can really enjoy the view in the mountains. And also, it's just something you have to do. I've just come back from Argentina, where everybody does this. That's why I was reminded of this great way to travel. And now I decided to follow their example. Amazingly beautiful. On the way, you can enjoy the aroma of the freshly picked tea leaves. This basket is what we got in the end. And now we're going to the factory to roast these leaves. Probably we'll make less tea than we would like, but still we'll try. Of course it will be a sort of exclusive. We collected the leaves ourselves, from 3 trees that grow together. And this is the quantity that we acquired from those trees. Pasha has a very pleasant characteristic, like any other mountain with a specific name. with specific features and powers. It has its specific taste as well. Tea from Pasha is different. It seemed very tender to me, and sweet, compared to Lao Banjiang, for example. In Bolangshan, it's stronger and even a little bitter. Here, tea is more delicate, at least now during the first harvest. It's the end of March now. It's the time when the tea is as tender, soft and subtle as can be. So it's the best time to pay a visit. So by now it's a tradition. Any time we come, we always try to join in on the harvesting and collect some exclusive tea, just for pleasure. We've arrived at our destination. Here's the factory, so let's go make some tea. I've been coming to Yan'an for so long, and finally someone got me a tote bag. Our tea master's mother made it. Now we're roasting tea. Standard technology. We weighed 5 kilos of tea leaves in this basket. Then we put the leaves into a preheated wok. It's essential to heat the wok first. The leaves are heated for 20 or 25 minutes, depending on the condition of the leaves. The master has enough experience to judge by eye, rather than follow strict instructions. This is how the leaves are roasted. Afterwards the tea is dried. First it's rolled, and then it's dried, and the tea is ready. Standard technology. We collected tea leaves, roasted them, rolled them, and dried, and that's it. According to our tradition, we're going to try this freshly rolled, freshly ruinianed Pu'erh. It was roasted, and then it was rolled, and now, prior to drying, it's resting. But before it dries, we're going to taste it. Well, it's a wonderful conclusion to a wonderful day. Although it's not exactly concluding, we're yet to go back to Menghai. We ordered tea, got what we came here for, packed our bags, labelled our bags, and now we're tasting the wonderful local sheng, which was just roasted. The taste of such a sheng is absolutely indescribable. Perhaps it's one of the reasons. Actually, there are a bunch of reasons, but this is one of the most pleasant ones. It's the reason that you feel like you're exactly where you should be, and that's the point. It's the main reason why you make such a journey, because you can't drink such tea anywhere else. Beautiful. Right now it has a fragrance that will be gone after the tea is dried, but the bitterness is already gone, because it's been roasted. Super flowery. Very, very delicious. This is the tea that we ourselves picked. Tomorrow it will be half dried, and the day after tomorrow it will be ready, I expect. Depends on the weather. If the weather tomorrow will be as sunny as today, it might finish drying by tomorrow evening, maybe earlier, because usually tea is roasted in the evening, but this tea was roasted earlier in the afternoon. Usually they start roasting when all the tea pickers finish their work for the day. But today, just for us, they roasted it earlier. I wish you lots of love, tea and joy.
你知道我在等你吗？你如果真的在乎我，有谁会让那无情的夜陪我度过？你知道我在等你吗？你如果真的在乎我，有谁会让那无情的夜陪我度过？
Hello from Pasha. We're having dinner. Dinner is a sacred thing, just as breakfast and lunch. All meals are sacred for the Chinese. I wanted to tell you a bit about the local cuisine. I've mentioned it before. I told you what we already tried here. First of all, there's red rice. There's rice with meat. But I'm eating red rice. Red rice is grown and produced here. It's very delicious and fragrant, very different from the kind of rice we're used to eating. Also, there's this bitter thing. It's called bitter sprout. Soon means sprout. And there are leaves from the mushu tree. There are all kinds of wild herbs here. There's meat too. And the main dish is roasted tea leaves with eggs. These are the very leaves that we collected from the ancient trees, so it's especially nice. But because before, I tried only regular tea leaves, but now I'll get to try gushu. That's amazing. Bon appetit. Let's eat. 一种起嘴巴，天涯来起到巴，天涯来到大麦，河海到大内，河公到济内，要个那路个老天河。